This is Echo Power. Half-second haircut power. Photosynthesize at your own risk power. Branches for breakfast and logs for lunch power. Get the heck off my lawn, huff and puff and blow your house down, king of the jungle power. Power to the power of power. This is Echo Power. Echo, power on and on.
Welcome to Landscapes 2020, and you are in the session Growing Your Business with Sustainable Landscape Services. And my name is Bob Grover, and I'm with Pacific Landscape Management in Portland, Oregon. So I want to take you through some baseline here of, we all love landscapes. And when I started the industry, landscapes were really all about beautifying the property. Well, that has changed over the last number of decades. And now landscapes actually are the most sustainable part of a development. And if you look at some of the statistics, one tree or a turf area the size of 50 by 50 feet can remove up to 26 pounds of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere annually, equaling 11,000 miles of car emission. That same tree or turf can release enough oxygen each day to supply a family of 4 with the oxygen they need to breathe. Trees and shrubs and turf and ground cover can also filter water and other pollutants and keep our streams clean from the pollutants on our roadways. Plants are moderating the temperature effect and the solar and infrared radiation by creating green areas in our commercial development. So we are doing a lot of good work with the landscape. There's been a great focus over the last couple of decades of the importance of saving the earth, or really being more environmentally sensitive and not having a negative impact on that. But some of the things that we do put a real big bullseye on our chest. We spray toxic chemicals. Anytime you have a backpack on the back, regardless of what you're spraying in there, it clearly must be toxic chemicals. Do we need to be pesticide free? I don't know. That's a good question. Wasted water. We see lots of irrigation going not where it needs to go, and we need to be responsible in protecting that precious resource. Should we go to xeriscape? Maybe not. That's the far edge of that. And we put down fertilizers, and that fertilizer can get into our roadways and leach into the stream systems and causing pollution. Can't we just be organic? Well, there's challenges with that as well. Air pollution. Oh my gosh, lawnmowers put out all kinds of toxic waste. Can't we just use brooms and manual mowers? Kind of challenging. So, let's not have a lot of despair. Let's have hope. That's where sustainability came in. But sustainability is important to understand. There's a balance between the perfect world of doing everything and having no impact on the environment probably is not feasible economically and maybe not going to be feasible socially. So we need to kind of find a balance between doing the right thing for the environment and having it being affordable and acceptable to our clients. Some examples of that. Everybody gets really excited about LEED. Well, a LEED platinum building is wonderful and energy efficient and built in a way that is less impactful on the environment, but it is not organic. If we wanted organic buildings, we would live in sod houses. A Prius, people get really excited at a Prius or a Tesla, but they are not organic. If we wanted to be organic in our transportation, we would walk or we would ride our bikes. So want to make sure that we're really careful of understanding what our focus is. We don't want to greenwash. We don't want to make things up. There's a few things I think it's ridiculous that plastic water bottle manufacturers, hey, I'm sustainable because I have 15% less plastic as opposed to not buying water in a plastic bottle. Starbucks, really environmentally conscious. All of their products are disposable. And just the fact that you can recycle it, wouldn't it be better if you took your coffee cup into Starbucks? Land Rover. They want you to believe that they're sustainable, that they are climate neutral because they're going to plant a tree for every car they make to offset the impact of that vehicle over its life cycle. Intel, we work in and around Intel in Oregon, and the Intel engineers look outside and see somebody using a gas-powered mower or blower or spraying, and they're saying, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Well, Intel is creating lots of things, and they've justified that. You have to do that stuff to create computer chips. So there's lots of things. Should we get involved in permaculture? Yes, we need to focus on improving air quality. Yes, we have to reduce stormwater runoff. So it gets back down to what is sustainable landscaping? Sustainable landscaping is low impact, low maintenance, and low resource use practices that are adapted to a particular set of climate. Doesn't mean we have to be all organic. We've made lots of choices, but we want to try to figure out how to reduce our impact even though we can't get all the way to organic. Lots of resources out there to help you make choices and help you understand what you need to do to be more organic and sustainable. We did about 15 years ago, started looking at, because we had customers asking what our sustainable focus was, we need to take a look at our business practices on helping reduce the environmental impact while maintaining the positive benefits of that urban landscaping. So we've done a variety of things. We're incorporating organics into our fertilizer. Are we 100% organic? No, but we are organic mix. We reduced our herbicide. We utilized IPM and evaluated using the least toxic and least bad chemicals out there and the least amount we can. We promote new irrigation efficiency technology, try to figure out how to keep our landscapes green and healthy without putting as much water down as we used to. We have converted to lower emission equipment, battery, propane equipment, improving the fuel economy of our fleet. And then looking at lots of new pieces of landscape elements are new technologies that we need to learn how to make sure that we maximize their value and make sure that they are working. Then we looked at home, practice what we preach, what we do. So I'm encouraging you, and you can use us as an example of what you can do. Don't be afraid of the sustainable movement. It actually can help build your business. So quickly, going back, looking at organic versus synthetic fertilizer. The big problem is organic's wonderful, but organic is very inefficient. You can't get higher than a 10% nitrogen rate, so you're going to have to put down twice as much, 3 times as much fertilizer, cost about the same amount. Is it better for the soil? Possibly, but it's way more expensive. One of the things you have to take into consideration is many of the organic fertilizer components are actually waste products of other sources. So it's good to use organic components because we're using what used to be a waste product. But within those waste products, there is some concerns that there's only 10% nitrogen. There's 90% of something else. What is that inert matter? And is it maybe as bad as the chemical in the nitrogen of a synthetic fertilizer? So what did we do? We created an organic blend where 40% of our nitrogen source is coming from the organic and 60% still coming from synthetic. So we're moving in the direction of being more organic, less synthetic fertilizer. What about pesticide use? Have we eliminated pesticides? No. Is it poison? Well, some are more poisonous than others. You know, something interesting to take a look at is people know what LD50 is. What's the lethal dose to kill the test population? The lower the number, the more toxic it is. So you actually look at caffeine, nicotine, Tylenol, a lot of things that we consume on a daily basis actually have LD50 numbers. Now, I'm not saying you should drink some of these herbicides, but some of the products that we are used to in our society have lower LD50, technically more toxic than some of the products that we're using. So keep it in a grain of salt. I'm not saying you're going to drink 2,4-D or Roundup. Now, an interesting thing has developed the last couple of years. Been a lot of concern over Roundup, glyphosate being potentially linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. There's a massive lawsuit a couple of years ago in California, and it's really put Roundup on its edge. The EPA continues. It's the most studied chemical, and they still say that they see no documentation that it provides any greater health risk to birds, mammals, or people. So it's something that we all have to make a choice over. Some people say, well, the EPA under the Trump administration, it's the Environmental Deception Program. I still trust the EPA as the most independent source for evaluating our chemicals. Also, National Pesticide Information Center says the same thing. Based on these studies, glyphosate is not likely a carcinogen. So I don't want to argue over that. Our goal is to say, let's use the least toxic, the least amount of pesticides we possibly can. Do we need to spray the whole lawn, or can we go out and spot spray? Some simple things like that. We reduced, when we got into that theory, 80% of our broadleaf weed control product by just going out and spot spraying the weed as opposed to spot spraying the entire lawn. We played around with some of the weed burners, very inefficient, maybe works on some weeds like dandelions, but not a lot on clovers. She experimented around with vinegar. Now that's kind of interesting. Vinegar has a lower LD50 than Roundup. Still, I'm going to put vinegar on my kitchen table, and I'm not going to put Roundup. But vinegar itself, in the concentrations that it takes to kill weeds, is actually a health risk of the applicator. So I'm not saying you should use Roundup as opposed to vinegar, but vinegar has its own challenges as well. So there's some issues to think about. It is good, but it is warning vinegar is very caustic. Water conservation, lots of things we can do in water conservation, some of the biggest areas of opportunity. Water is money. Water rates are rising, at least in the Northwest. That's the fastest rising utility. And if we can save people money in water, we're going to save them significantly in their operational expenses. Now, the first thing is we need to manage our systems to make sure the water is actually going toward the lawn and not into the parking lot. The advent of weather-based irrigation over the last 15 to 20 years has revolutionized irrigation. Let's water only as much as needed when needed. This is a daily ET chart in Oregon. Very, very spiky hot days, followed cold days. There's a little bit of rain in there. One year is not the same as the next. So if you have the ability to adjust your clocks on a daily basis automatically, you'll save lots of water. The theory is you turn it on in the spring, you turn it off in the fall, and all the days when it doesn't get hot, you're overwatering. But in the days that it gets super hot, you're going to be underwatering. So weather-based irrigation is a great way to do that. We started installing weather-based irrigation over a decade ago, and we're seeing that we're saving 20 to 40% in the typical water usage without that ability to control your irrigation on a daily basis. And then we also found that irrigation technology, it's not just plug and play. You have to understand how to do it. So prior to weather-based irrigation, and for 3 years, there was significant water usage. Our first year, we reduced water by 37%. We actually made some adjustments to the system. The second year, we were down 59%. Property sold, we still had access to the water data. There was a 55% increase the first year and even 41% the second year. We knew how to operate the system. The contractor that took over didn't. So don't oversimplify it. It is complicated. You need to learn how to operate it to make it work. As I said, water is getting more and more expensive throughout the nation in Oregon. So we said weather-based irrigation is only so much. If your system is putting water down improperly, weather-based irrigation will show you where your problems are. It won't solve your problems. So we've come up and developed this water conservation plan that we are promoting and selling to our customers to help document their system and give them ideas on upgrades on how to solve coverage-related problems. Some areas modifying the system, hydrozoning, and a lot of them are coming out with saying, that was a parking strip before. You shouldn't have lawn here. You can save water by reducing where you're utilizing lawn where it's difficult to grow lawn. So those are some of the things that we've been looking at, and we're getting lots of acceptance of water conservation because it has dramatic ROI. Engine emissions, a very challenging aspect. We have a lot of small engines which don't have the same pollution controls on them. A couple of decades ago, the EPA said that a typical lawnmower operating is like 43 new cars, and that's pretty significant. Now, the outdoor power equipment says, hey, but that same lawnmower, the lawn that it's mowing is sequestering 4 times as much carbon as the lawnmower is putting off. So somewhere in the middle of that, we still want to maintain lawns and try to figure out how to reduce that. Many of the manufacturers and the EPA has required that they reduce their emissions over the years. So equipment you buy today is significantly less impactful than the emissions that you had in the past. So keeping your fleet updated really works out really well. The EPA stringent restrictions on pollutant over the last number of years. So we're a big fan of Stihl. Stihl is one of the manufacturers. All manufacturers have improved emissions in theirs. We're also looking at battery operated. That's really developed over the last 5 years. Whether it's Stihl or Oregon, many of the manufacturers have battery products. The problem is battery equipment, you have to replace the battery. You can't just fill up the gas tank. So taking a look at things, they don't have the same force. They don't have the same run time. They are quieter, but they cost almost 3 times as much. So we're not going to be as efficient with those. We're going to have to spend more money on those. And it gets to be that problem of, I want you to reduce your carbon footprint, but I don't want to pay more for my landscape maintenance. That is a challenge. They're very interesting in how they are trying to figure out how to have larger battery, but all of these things increase the cost and the operational expense of battery equipment. We believe that this is going to take over. The technology's come a long way in 10 years, and really believe that in 10 years from now, we probably won't see small gas engine equipment anymore because all of this technology continues to improve every year. Larger equipment, that's an issue as well. So there's been a big push to convert to propane. Propane does still have a carbon footprint, but its carbon footprint is lower. and all it releases is carbon dioxide. At least there is no other hydrocarbons that it's releasing. We have gone through all of our large equipment. We've converted over to propane over the last number of years, and it is significantly reducing that pollutant, as well as actually it's more efficient and lower cost per gallon. So we're saving money in our operation that's offsetting the cost of converting our equipment. Now, robotic mowers, a lot of focus on the robotic mowers. A lot of them are more homeowner models where it's going to do like the Roomba vacuum cleaner. That's not where we believe that it's going to really be effective in the commercial marketplace. Will it solve our labor problem? Maybe. But the question is, on the bigger mowers, somebody's got to drive that mower. And we're seeing many of the manufacturers come up with these automated robotic mowers that will do striping patterns, that will avoid obstacles. And I believe in a few years, we're going to start to see more and more of our wide open mowing done by robotic mowers. And all of these robotic mowers are electric powered. So it may be going to really reduce our labor as well as reduce our carbon footprint. So very, very exciting time in the mowing front there. Vehicles. We got really excited about biodiesel, and then we found out, hey, look, biodiesel, you can be 95% conventional diesel, 5% biodiesel, and they can call it biodiesel. So we're not as excited about biodiesel, and I laugh at people that have biodiesel stickers on the backs of their cars. You know, one of the biggest pollutants is spilled gas. And one statistic says that the amount of gas spilled by gassing up small engine equipment in the United States exceeds the amount that was spilled by the Exxon Valdez in Alaska 30 years ago. So new technology on spill-proof. Can we get gas into our machines without spilling it on the ground? Green waste recycling. At least in Oregon for 2 decades, the cheapest place to get rid of our yard debris is in a recycle center. And the cool thing about that is you get rid of it there, they grind it up, they create mulch, which goes back into the landscape. So it's a full circle. But it is expensive to do that. So at least it is as inexpensive as it's expensive, but it's still cheaper than taking it to the landfill here. One of the things that we've done is of all of these initiatives, you said, oh, what is the impact to our business? What is the impact to this property? So we had an intern a few years ago say, how much emission reduction have we done? How much synthetic fertilizer reduction we've done? How much water conservation we've done per square foot? What is the impact to your property? And having that be something that we're giving back to our people. So it is an interesting thought on what does that mean to our organization? What does that mean to a particular property? So here we're saying, hey, our system compared to standard will reduce 421 pounds of hydrocarbons by our use of lower emission equipment. Interesting idea to how to have that relates to certain people. Now, some of the other things that there's been a big focus on is what are we doing in our business philosophy beyond what we're doing in the landscape. So recycling, we are ardent recyclers in not just our yard debris and not just the paper and plastic, but everything that we can do, whether it's our plastic containers and plastic bottles, plastic bags, plastic irrigation parts. Now there is a problem. We got really excited about that, but there's not a good secondary market. So we're having less and less sources for plastic. So we got really, really good about recycling plastic, but they're not taking it anymore. Metal's still really easily recyclable. We take sprinklers apart, our old equipment we take apart, and we recycle all of our old equipment. We got really excited about eliminating our use of paper products and using bio products that are made out of recyclable plastic and paper. Got a Recycle at Work program in our local counties to give us certification that we do know what we're doing. Electrical usage. Our office had a significant amount of electrical usage, and we said, hey, how can we reduce that? So one of the first things we did is says, hey, in the summer, why don't we open up the front door and let's cool the place down and let's close the door and turn on the air conditioner only when we need it. We reduced our electrical usage 20% one year by doing that. Then the advent of solar powers. On 2 of our 3 facilities, we've installed solar panels and are generating our company-wide about 90% of our electricity need through the solar panels that we have. So that was really cool of getting the solar panels installed, and our electrical usage almost went to 0. We find that not only is it generating electrical power through solar panels, we actually have converted all of our lighting to compact fluorescent and LEDs over the years to even continue to reduce that. Wastewater. We wash our equipment every night. Maybe other areas of the country don't, but we have a lot of wet grass that clogs up our lawnmower, so we have to wash up our equipment. Well, all that goes into the storm drain, which goes to the storm sewer, which goes to the creek. And as we're starting to see, that's not a good thing. So we actually sought out our local agency, and they said, well, you need to connect your stormwater to a sanitary sewer. And we actually had to go all the way around our building and connect in with the sanitary sewer. And then we got approved by our sewage agency and a local organization that certifies us as an ecological business. In that wash pad, simple little things like we just turned on the water and the water would just flow. We put on adjustable nozzles out there and we reduced our water significantly. $100 investment in nozzles saved us $750 a year. So it's really cool when you can do the right sustainable thing and save money. Flower planting. We've converted all of our flower planting to these ellie pots. It's a paper sleeve around compacted soil, and we reduced all of the disposable plastic pots with that kind of deal. So everywhere we can find to look and reduce the impact, every year we find something new. It's sustainable landscaping is not a destination, it's a process you go to. So some of the other things that you can look into is all of the new systems within landscaping. Landscaping is becoming more and more environmentally conscious, not just beautifying anymore, it's helping us clean our air and water. So rain gardens. Rain gardens are great of helping clean the water that's coming off of the building and getting it back down into the ground. So water coming off of a building, they're exciting, beautiful elements. We can have these splash areas and then go into these really, really attractive areas. So rain garden, the theory is taking clean water off of a roof and injecting it back into the soil. That's different than a bioswale. Bioswales are taking dirty water, cleaning it up and getting it into the storm sewer system. Got really excited about these rain gardens. And at our office, we had just a typical landscape out front along a building. We dug that out. We had the downspouts that come off the front of our building, created a swale, filled it full of gravel and plants. And now we have the entire front of our building is a rain garden. When it rains, it fills up and absorbs all that water off the front of our building into the ground. And it's actually a more attractive landscape than it was. And we're seeing that more and more people integrating these rain gardens into landscapes and having them be very, very attractive landscape elements and not just being the processing of water. Now, bioswales, as I said, bioswales is cleaning dirty water coming off the parking lot. So it's not as much about getting it back into the ground, but cleaning it before it goes into these stream systems. A lot of them are just plants with grass over them to capture the water and slow it down. There's not necessarily always the most attractive part. So one of our frustrations is these things are really kind of ugly. A lot of times they're on the backside and they don't get maintained because people think that they're native plants and they don't need to be maintained. So we're trying to promote, is that what you want the front door of your business park to look like? Or would you rather have something a little bit more attractive? So we're seeing more and more people integrating rain garden or a bioswale into a landscape to actually have it be an attractive amenity part of the landscape as opposed to being out of sight, out of mind, and don't maintain it. So really, really some interesting areas where we're seeing really, really cool things where people are using rain gardens and bioswales and having them be an attractive part of the landscape. Now, our local agency has got some theory is buildings, more and more buildings are having green roofs. They're having these rain art, you call it, going down into the rain gardens, going out into the parking lots, permeable pavers and bioswales of processing our water. On our street corridors, having these bioswales and permeable pavers in the parking strips. Very, very exciting what's happening there today, but we're finding that these systems take special care. We need to learn how to maintain those and have them keeping functional and also have them in these areas to be attractive so they are acceptable to somebody's front door. Green roof. Green roofs are very, very exciting. Many cities are promoting and providing incentive for green roofs. Basically, it's sedums to try to absorb the water and help slow it down again, absorb a little bit of it, but most of it is just slowing the water from going down on a heavy rain into the stream system. Most of them are built of these sedums on top of this porous soil. Some of them are just absolutely beautiful in their ability to provide an amenity and not just doing that heavy work. Depending on what it is, we've seen some rain gardens with grasses in there, and they can dry up and actually be a fire hazard. So the sedums are very, very good and drought tolerant. Talking about lawns, America loves lawns, but lawns are expensive and a resource that has to be maintained. So some places is maybe the only thing we can do. Other places, can we have an alternative? And we've been doing a lot of work with what we call ecological lawn, basically clover and some other blooming components to have a large area. We're not touching many of these lawns, they just as a drive-by. So having a firm growth of clover here could be really good. So whether it's got a variety of blooming components, it's probably not going to be a meadow, but it's something rather that can really work. What we're finding is we're mowing it every other week, so we're reducing our mowing 30 to 40%. Clover doesn't need to be fertilized. We've eliminated any fertilization, and we're reducing our irrigation. It's more drought tolerant. We're finding it can be an attractive and very effective ground cover, and not manicured lawn has to be everywhere. What we're finding is if you don't maintain it properly, it can look like a field. So it sometimes is built as it's a meadow. It doesn't need to be maintained. You don't see nature maintaining it. Well, if you don't mow it often enough, it looks like a field when you do mow it. And you do have to make sure that you are mowing it properly to have it look like a lawn and look like an appropriate maintained ground cover. Now, lawn in general, in the big areas, ecological lawn makes a little bit of sense, but what about parking strips, in and around trees, parking islands? There's a lot of places where, as the landscape matures, lawn will not grow anymore. Parking strips, very, very difficult. You got concrete on both sides and lots of tree roots. So we've started doing some experimenting with, hey, let's eliminate that. We actually, in front of our office, we eliminated the trees were building up the sidewalk. So we removed the trees, we removed the landscape, and we put in root barrier around the new trees, and we replanted it with drip irrigation and drought-tolerant plant material and rock. And now that's a very, very attractive, and we use maybe 10% of the water that we used to do, and it's very, very attractive. So trying to figure out where you can eliminate lawn and have it look very, very attractive. Why would you have a 1 foot wide lawn you can't keep water on that lawn only. So, having these areas be rock or can be very, very attractive. Really, really good idea. We've had some places, rock is expensive. River rock is expensive. We use bark mulch in Oregon. It's a cheaper component, but you have to replace it. But even in the stopgap of getting rid of lawn, placing a couple boulders, maybe eliminating the water completely and putting in some mulch is way better than having ugly looking lawn that's taking a lot of water. Now, weed control. We have experimented with goats are actually a great weed control methodology. We have a couple of vendors here in Oregon that they'll bring your goats in and they will chew it down. So if you see here, there's a big blackberry bramble in this wetlandy area. We brought the goats in. They chewed the things down to nubbins. And that was not only a great environmental way to do it, but the tenants of this business park absolutely loved it. They would come out and just stare at the goats during the day. Now, one of the last pieces I want to talk about is there's been a big push in Oregon of, oh gosh, if you just plant native plants, they don't need to be maintained, and how sustainable they would be. But my point is a native plant in a non-native environment. If you plant a native plant in the forest, it's going to do well. If you take that same native plant in clay soil surrounded by concrete in a parking island, and it's probably not the best plant to plant there. So I'm a big proponent, and when people say native plants, I go, no, you mean adapted plants. It doesn't need to be from here. It needs to be more adapted to the environment you're planting it into. And most native plants in Oregon are green, and we would like to have more blooming components, more textural differences. So we're big, big advocates of adapted plants. Now, there's a lot of places to look. The NALP has certifications. A lot of places where you can become knowledgeable about water conservation, about proper maintenance, ISA, NALP, the EPA, the Irrigation Association. If you look to your local states, some of them have. In Oregon, we have the Oregon TILF program and the Ecological Business Program. And then you have the U.S. Green Building Council with a lead. So I would highly recommend you get educated and learn about where you can get resources, and then show you that you have certification, that you have not just learned how to and have a desire to be more sustainable, that you actually have become educated and learned about that. So talking about the program, what are the key takeaways I would like you to remember? And the primary care is don't fear the sustainability movement. As I talk with people that go, well, you're from Oregon. People get excited about that in Oregon. They don't see that in Kentucky or Ohio. Well, it is coming to everywhere. We have a small rock that we have a lot of people on here, and our resources are becoming more and more challenging to find and maintain. So sustainability, you don't want to have sustainability chase you. You want to be chasing sustainability. We chose 15 years ago to adapt our service, and I believe it helps us maintain our leadership position in Portland as being a leading charge statewide and nationally on the sustainable movement, and it's helping build our service and differentiate us of why we are the proper choice. So don't fear it, use it to your advantage. Thank you very much.